Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we are talking about a story that could completely reshape Canada's Air Force, Canada's defense industry, and even Canada's relationship with the United States. According to the latest reports and high-level discussions coming out of Ottawa, Canada may no longer be thinking only about one fighter jet. Not just the American F-35, not just the Swedish Gripen, but possibly both. And if this report becomes official, then Canada could be moving toward one of the biggest air power expansions in its modern history. A mixed fleet of F-35 stealth fighters and Saab Gripen E fighter jets, possibly taking the total number of aircraft beyond 100. Now, let me be very clear from the beginning. This is not fully official yet. Ottawa has not made the final public announcement, but the signals are getting stronger and the direction is becoming harder to ignore. Canada already committed to buying the F-35. The original plan was 88 aircraft from Lockheed Martin. These jets were supposed to replace Canada's aging CF-18 fleet and strengthen Canada's NORAD and NATO commitments. But then the political world changed. Trade tensions with Washington increased. Canada started questioning how much of its military future should depend on the United States. And Prime Minister Mark Carney's government began reviewing whether every single fighter jet in Canada's future fleet really needed to be American-made. That review opened the door to Sweden, and Sweden came with Saab, and Saab came with the Gripen. But this story is not just about fighter jets. This is about power. This is about sovereignty. This is about jobs. And most importantly, this is about whether Canada wants to remain only a buyer of foreign defense technology or become a country that builds, exports, and controls part of the future air combat market itself.
The first major clue came with Canada's move towards Saab's GlobalEye surveillance aircraft. GlobalEye is not a normal aircraft. It is an advanced airborne early warning and control system. In simple words, it is the flying eye of the battlefield. It watches the sky, the sea, and the land. It can detect threats at long range. It can guide fighter jets. It can give commanders a real-time picture of what is happening. And here is the important part. GlobalEye is based on Bombardier's Globem 6500 jet, a Canadian-built aircraft. That means Canada is not just buying a foreign system. Canada is bringing its own aerospace industry into the center of the deal. This is where the Gripen story becomes much bigger. Because if Saab is already building a Canadian supply chain around GlobalEye, then the next question becomes obvious. Could that same industrial base support Gripen production in Canada? And according to the latest discussions, that is exactly what Ottawa and Saab appear to be exploring. Reports suggest Canada may still keep a large number of F-35s, possibly 72 to 88, but also add a major Gripen fleet. Some discussions reportedly include around 72 Gripen fighters, which would be a massive shift from the original 88-jet plan. Think about what that means. Canada would not simply replace one aircraft with another. Canada could expand the entire Air Force. Instead of asking F-35 or Gripen, Ottawa may now be asking, why not both, but for different missions? This is where the strategy becomes very interesting. The F-35 is a stealth fighter. It is built for high-end missions, deep sensor fusion, NATO interoperability, and operations where stealth matters. It is expensive, advanced, and deeply connected to American military systems. The Gripen E is different. It is not trying to be the F-35. Its strength is agility, lower operating cost, easier maintenance, and the ability to operate from roads, smaller airstrips, and dispersed bases. Sweden designed the Gripen for survival in a war where major air bases could be attacked early. And that matters for Canada. Canada has a huge territory. The Arctic is becoming more important. Russia is active in the north. China is watching the region. NATO is changing. The world is moving from predictable alliances to uncertain power politics. In that environment, Canada may need more than a small number of elite stealth jets. It may need numbers. It may need flexibility. It may need aircraft that can operate from more places, with faster turnaround and with more local industrial support. That is where the Gripen becomes attractive. But the real explosive part of this story is not only military, it is industrial. Saab has a problem. Global demand for Gripen is rising, but Sweden's production capacity is limited. Ukraine is moving toward Gripen. Brazil already has a Gripen program. Other countries are watching closely. And if NATO countries start looking for a lower-cost European fighter alternative, Saab will need more production capacity. Canada could become that production hub. Imagine this. Gripen jets not only assembled for the Royal Canadian Air Force, but also built in Canada for export to NATO allies, possibly even for Ukraine. That would create thousands of jobs. It would strengthen Canada's aerospace sector. It would reduce dependence on the United States. And it would give Canada something it has not had in a long time, a major fighter aircraft industrial role. This is why the decision is bigger than the Air Force. It is about building a defense industrial base. It is about creating skilled jobs in Canada. It is about using Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, Canadian copper, Canadian critical minerals, Canadian engineers, and Canadian factories instead of sending billions of dollars abroad and receiving finished products back. For years, Canada has sold raw materials to the world. But this deal asks a new question. Why sell the ingredients when Canada can also build the final weapon system? That is the emotional core of this story. Canada does not only want to protect its skies, Canada wants to build the machines that protect its skies.
But there is another layer, the United States. The F-35 deal is not just a defense deal, it is also a political card. Canada's purchase of F-35s represents billions of dollars flowing into the U.S. defense industry. That gives Ottawa leverage, especially during difficult trade negotiations and SUSMA-related discussions. If Canada says, we may reduce the F-35 order and buy Swedish Gripens instead, that gets attention in Washington. Because this is not a small purchase. This is one of the biggest defense procurement decisions in Canadian history, and now it may be used not only to modernize the Air Force, but also to negotiate Canada's position with the United States. That is why the final F-35 number may remain uncertain for some time. Canada has already committed to an initial batch, but whether the final number stays at 88, drops closer to 72, or becomes part of a much larger mixed fleet, that is the real question. And honestly, this may be the most dramatic moment in Canada's fighter debate. Because for years, people argued over one question: should Canada buy the F-35? But now the question has changed. The new question is, what kind of Air Force does Canada want to become? A small, expensive, fully American integrated stealth fleet? Or a larger, more flexible, mixed fleet that combines American stealth with Swedish ruggedness and Canadian industrial power? Of course, there are risks. A mixed fleet is complicated. 2 aircraft types mean 2 training systems, 2 maintenance pipelines, 2 supply chains, 2 logistics structures, and potentially higher long-term costs. The Air Force may prefer simplicity. Military planners often want one platform, one system, one support network. But politics does not always follow military simplicity. Politics follows sovereignty. Politics follows jobs. Politics follows national strategy. And right now, the political mood in Canada seems to be moving towards diversification. Diversify defense partners, diversify supply chains, diversify industrial capacity, and reduce over-reliance on one country, even if that country is the United States. That is why Saab's timing is almost perfect. GlobalEye opens the door, Gripen walks through it, and Canada gets the chance to turn a fighter jet purchase into a 30, 40, maybe 50-year aerospace partnership. So where does this leave us? In my view, Canada is getting very close to a major announcement. I would not say the final Gripen decision is guaranteed, but the direction is strong. The GlobalEye deal has already created momentum. Saab is actively positioning itself. Ottawa wants Canadian jobs, and the government wants defense spending that builds domestic industry, not just foreign dependency. My prediction is this: Canada will likely keep the F-35 in some form because it is too important for NORAD, NATO, and stealth missions. But the Gripen now has a serious chance, not as a replacement for the F-35, but as the aircraft that could expand Canada's Air Force and create a new Canadian defense industry around fighter production. And if that happens, this will not just be a fighter jet story, it will be a national strategy story, a story about Canada choosing more control over its own defense future, a story about turning crisis into industry, A story about moving from buyer to builder. And maybe, just maybe, a story about Canada becoming one of the most important Gripen production hubs in the NATO world. So now the real question is, how close are we? 70%? 80%? Or is this already decided behind closed doors, waiting for the right political moment to be announced? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Canada should build a mixed fleet of F-35s and Gripens, or should Canada stay with one aircraft only? Subscribe for more defense updates, because this story is moving fast, and if Ottawa makes the official announcement, it could change the future of Canadian air power for decades. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.